The history of machines tells us that the most likely time for a problem, for error, for a malfunction, is when a big, complex machine is moving from one state to another. It is changing its speed, it is being started up, it is being shut down, it is an airplane that is landing. Those are changes of state that need a higher than normal level of alertness.
Like 3 Mile Island, the Chernobyl nuclear plant sits on a riverbank. This one is the Pripyat River, 80 miles north of the Ukrainian capital of Kyiv. 7 years earlier, catastrophe had been narrowly averted at 3 Mile Island. But on a spring day in 1986, the farm-filled countryside around this huge plant will not be so lucky. Unit 4 at Chernobyl had been scheduled for a maintenance shutdown. Even routine maintenance moves a complex machine from one state to another. It is a time of great danger. Normal procedure is interrupted or set aside. Safety checklists are changed. But on this day, authorities have changed the status quo even more. They have ordered that a test be conducted to see how much electricity can be pulled from the generators while the reactor is losing power and slowing to a halt.
The thing was hard to keep going at low power. And one by one, they had to disable the various automatic systems that would have shut down the reactor. This big grumpy beast did not like to keep walking at this awkward speed.
In fact, the reactor fought back, tried to shut itself down completely as it approached that dangerous low power state. The operators took steps to keep it running at a lower power, pushing that edge because they had been told, work out this experiment, see how much power you can squeeze.
Now the reactor is surging into unknown territory. Within minutes, it is clear to plant operators that the machine is running away with itself. They decide to shut it down.
And they threw the switch to drive in the control rods, which were also the shutdown rods. And unfortunately, the design of those rods had the effect of making the situation worse instead of better.
With a force of 45 tons of dynamite, the reactor explodes and rips off the top of the containment building. Tons of steel are thrown in all directions.
But what was also blown apart was one of the largest collections of cancer-causing, death-causing poison that humans had ever assembled in one place.
As helicopters and plant workers pour tons of water onto the raging inferno, huge clouds of radioactive steam pour into the air. They begin a terrifying migration across all of northern Europe. In what amounts to a suicide mission, workers frantically try to bring the fire under control. While Soviet media try to put the best face on the disaster, the awful results soon become apparent. Over 2,000 workers die in the initial explosion and the intense radiation that follows. Another 6,000 will die when they are ordered to build a containment shell over the ruined but still very deadly reactor.
I have a great deal of respect to those people who were going inside the shelter. They knew that there was a 90% probability that they would die of radiation eventually. And yet, I'm sorry, I can't. I am sure that most of them died.
The nearby city of Pripyat, once home to 50,000 people, became a ghost town as its residents were evacuated from the region. In the years since, cancer rates and birth defects throughout the Ukraine and neighboring Belarus have skyrocketed. Today, the containment shell that was poorly built in haste around the still radioactive plant threatens to collapse. If it does, it will again spill its poison into the environment.
Some of the statistics are really frightening. No one will ever farm within probably a 100-mile radius of that place for decades, perhaps 100 years. if you have to doubt that attention must be paid to these things, just look at some of the incidents and statistics from Chernobyl. So it gives a glimpse, just a glimpse, a horrific glimpse of what could have happened in Pennsylvania.
3 Mile Island was spared the horror of Chernobyl. The great cooling towers of Unit 2 still rise to the sky. But the unit has never again produced electricity. Radiation levels in some parts of its buildings remain so high that no one has dared go there since the accident. In July of 1983, technicians at last were able to lower video cameras into the core of the reactor. What they found confirmed what had only been feared. Over 50% of the reactor's core had vanished on that day in 1979, turning over 20 tons of uranium into molten sludge. 30 to 60 minutes is all that separated 3 Mile Island from the unspeakable. Had complete reactor meltdown occurred, as many as 3,000 people might have died immediately. Another 45,000 could have died from radiation cancer. Harrisburg, Lancaster, even the Gettysburg National Battlefield Park, all could have become uninhabitable for decades. But fortunately, no one died at 3 Mile Island. Ultimately, the physical plant did its job. Most radiation was contained. The meltdown was only partial. Although Unit 2 remains locked and impossible to enter for more than a few minutes, its companion, Unit 1, continues to produce electricity. But 5 frightening days in the spring of 1979 changed forever the face of nuclear power in America. They ended the nation's blind infatuation with the atomic miracle. Since the accident, no new reactor licenses have been applied for. Because of 3 Mile Island, nuclear plants today are safer, better equipped, and are operated by personnel better trained to handle emergencies. Carefully designed evacuation and contingency plans are in place. Most important, no one involved in nuclear power will ever again tell the public, it can't happen here. Some of the most dramatic changes have been in how the Nuclear Regulatory Commission is prepared to deal with any future accidents.
I'd like to show you the facility that we developed that reflects many of the lessons learned as a result of the 3 Mile Island accident. Of most importance is a direct line that we have from here to every plant site in the United States. It not only ties in voice communication links and allows these individuals to talk to their counterparts on site, but it also has a line that goes into the plant computer. What we do with that information is analyze it, turn it over, and attempt to characterize what are the most important parts of the safety systems that we should be concerned with.
But we have also learned other less tangible lessons. They are lessons that have less to do with hardware and engineering and more to do with human attitudes toward technology.
Well, complex technologies work best when they're backed up by skepticism and checking, not bravado, not confidence that nothing can go wrong. Complacency and bravado are recipes for surprises, and very nasty surprises.
As our technologies advance and as our power to wipe ourselves out increases, it is vital that our wisdom increase at least as fast a rate as our knowledge. And wisdom and knowledge are not the same things.
You know, I think it's important that these cooling towers remain here forever as a monument to a failed technology. And, you know, like any battlefield that you go to study, this is a battlefield where technology failed. And you can't study nuclear power without coming to 3 Mile Island. It would be like studying the Civil War without going to Gettysburg.
Of the 37,000 people who lived within 5 miles of these giant towers when the accident happened, only half remain living there. Those who stayed here express a confidence that society has learned well the lessons of 3 Mile Island. Those who have moved away from this place remind us that we must forever be on guard for the mistakes and arrogance that can bring about disaster.